Oh, that's how Hornet came to be, bro. I will die for you, but first you need to me. That's crazy. No, my perception of Hornet is now ruined.
If you were to ask me, what is your favorite video game ever made? I would have to say Cory in the House for the Nintendo DS.
Oh, back then it was so fun, like playing DS with like your friends, playing Rune Factory, Harvest Moon, all that.
2017 by Team Cherry, an indie game studio based in the mythical land of Adelaide, South Australia.
It's from Australia.
Years,
Did not know that.
Hollow Knight has become an indie darling. The game has sold over 3.5 million copies. It was the opening game at ADGQ 2019.
Wow,
There's a Hollow Knight
goosebumps.
book, a line of plushies.
Hornet, I love Hornet so much. Hornet is so adorable. I'm so glad that they made her the protagonist of Silksong. Like seeing all the Hornet fan art on Twitter as well. Like
nuclear warheads, and even vinyl records for all you goddamn
vinyl
hipsters.
records.
Team Cherry had one goal when making Hollow Knight. They wanted to create a world that allowed players to get completely lost in exploration.
Oh yeah. Completely lost. That's me. 90% of my gameplay was getting lost. Good job, Team Cherry. Good job.
You can see this desire in Hollow Knight's design.
Like, look at the map.
Massive, with secrets and rewards hidden in every nook and cranny. Be that powerful charms, special abilities, or the game's navigation system requires the player to work for their map, forcing them to make a stronger mental image of the world in their head.
I feel like
Christopher Lark's score and Ari Gibson's artwork lend to this as well, creating an atmosphere that the player won't want to leave. But there's one aspect of Hollow Knight that keeps people like me coming back: the world building. When Super Metroid launched in 1994, it stood out for its amazing sense of immersion.
Oh, this is where the term metroidvania comes from.
I was busy not being alive, but I've watched enough YouTube video essays to know that this game was a big deal.
Metroidvanias hate to see me coming. Opens map every 2. Oh, I open it every 2 seconds,
In
bro.
case you didn't know, Super Metroid is basically the granddaddy of all Metroidvanias.
I'm
That's
even
why
worse.
They're called Metroidvanias.
I thought Metroidvania was like
there are moments that give the player a sense
combination
of
of Metroid and
basically
Castlevania.
the feeling that this world exists outside of Samus's interactions with it. In the room right before that diabetic crocodile thing, Samus can find the corpse of a random soldier. His inclusion here doesn't change the gameplay at all, but instead gives the player a sense of wonder about the world they are exploring. Who was this guy? Why was he here in the first place?
To an extent, it's creepy, no? To an extent. Anyway.
Like jazz? Now, finding dead bodies and other random garbage is pretty cool, right? Well, Hollow Knight basically does the same thing.
A lot.
About a dozen times.
Yeah, a lot.
Its world building,
I
Hollow Knight turns Hallownest into
getting
a
thoroughly
kingdom.
confused.
You can sense the ancient history of the land when you look at dilapidated structures or giant barred doors.
Yeah.
Nothing feels like it was put into the game randomly. There's a reason for it all. Except those reasons aren't the easiest to uncover. Hollow Knight's narrative is buried under layers of NPC dialogue, item descriptions, lore tablets, and even additional content like the Quarrel comic and Fangamer's Wanderer's Journal.
Wait, what is it? What is this? You can or could. I think a lot of stuff is sold out. Get it on Fangamer. Oh, is this like a
additional content like the Quarrel comic?
Oh, so it's like an okay. I see.
And Fangamer's Wanderer's
like a
Journal.
guidebook of some sorts.
These past 3 years have seen an insane amount of research by the Hollow Knight community
to
make sense of Team Cherry's
wow, bro, how many? Oh my god,
sprawling world.
These are also like super well made as well.
People are looking at the in-game
translated a sign at the Forgotten Crossroads Stag Station. What?
In this video, I hope to give you a long and detailed look into the world of Hollow Knight.
Oh, the Hornet fight. I love Hornet.
When I'm not busy making surprisingly accurate Super Smash Bros. Roster speculation videos, or insightful podcasts about beloved subjects like the Donkey Kong Country television series, or whatever this was supposed to be, I'm usually making videos about Hollow Knight. I am a seasoned Hollow Knight lore expert. I cannot confirm that every musing or theory presented in this video is completely correct. I highly recommend
I zoned out there for a little bit, but this docs literally just contains all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That's crazy.
Presented in this video is completely correct. I highly recommend checking out the lore section of the Hollow Knight wiki if you want a more neutral explanation of Hollow Knight's lore. But if you're too lazy to read, then I suggest you sit back, order some Domino's pizza, or just grab a block of cheese from the fridge and enjoy the mostly complete lore of Hallownest.
Alright, that was the intro, let's go.
It's a simple fact of life that every human worships a god, be that technology, ideologies, or in rare cases,
a
God.
VTuber. Oh god,
As
okay.
it turns out, the
That makes
bugs in
sense.
Hallownest pretty much operate in the same way. From the Mosskin born from the dream of a giant slug, to the emo kids
Wait,
in the
born
ancient
from the
civilization
dream?
who literally worship the darkness.
Born
There's
from a
no shortage
dream?
of
Oh.
things to worship in the world of Hollow Knight. Our story begins with a creature very much worthy of worship.
Alright, here we go.
A creature born from the carcass of a worm. The carcass can still be found in the Kingdom's Edge, and it's our only good look
I
at
remember
what worms
this.
actually looked like.
I remember this
At
place.
the time Hollow Knight occurs, it is suggested there are no worms left in the world. They were incredibly long creatures that
die.
featured little to no limbs. Another more mysterious property of worms was that they had some kind of prescience or foresight.
Prescience or
Basically, they could see
foresight.
the future to some
Okay.
capacity.
I
It
see.
isn't clear how effective this ability was.
To an extent, I wish I hadn't finished Hollow Knight a long time ago, so that my first playthrough would have been closer to Silksong, but
Considering
But
how
it's
the
fine.
entire
It
race
is what
went
it is.
extinct, this foresight ability must have been pretty shit.
I was gonna say, yeah, it must have
Getting
been
back
pretty
to this
terrible
particular worm
if they still
carcass,
went
it is explained that
extinct.
this worm traveled across the distant mountains and wastelands beyond Hallownest. Once it arrived in Hallownest, the worm died.
Oh, well.
Except
So-
not really.
Oh, okay,
Inside
not really.
the maw of the carcass sits a pale broken egg, out of which hatched a new form of worm, a being of meager shell. This form of the worm is usually referred to as the Pale King, and
Oh.
he's the character basically responsible for everything that happens.
Did we even see
in
this person
Hollow
or
Knight.
no? I don't think we even see the Pale King, no? In like a normal playthrough? I don't remember seeing this guy. Or I might be tripping, I don't know.
The Pale King is a higher being,
You can see him.
a type of
Oh,
creature that
really?
exists above all others. His body was said to shine with a radiant visage that
Yeah,
harmed
there were
those
so
who
many
looked upon him.
references to the Pale
ultimate
King
goal of the
from
Pale
all
King
the
seemed to be in line
NPCs.
with that of other worms. A line from the cryptic Mr. Mushroom reads, "Worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall." In other words, it's just in their nature. Dogs wag their tails, cats bury their shit, and worms bring massive amounts of bugs into their service in order
Right.
to form long-standing kingdoms and civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
And here in
Okay.
a far corner of the world, the Pale King emerged from the corpse of his former self and began to build his eternal kingdom, Hallownest.
I
There's just
see.
one slight problem. There's like people already living there.
The British
The
be
area that
like.
would eventually become Hallownest was already filled with mantises, bees, moths, spiders, mushrooms, and
the Spider-Man. I remember I fucking hated the bees though. The bees sounded fucking disgusting, bro. Kept giving me goosebumps.
bush cosplayers.
Bush
Each of these groups
cosplayers.
were already operating with their
This
own
guy's funny,
cultures and
man.
societies, and each group had a different interaction with the Pale King. One of the more receptive groups to the arrival of the Pale King were the mushrooms of the fungal wastes. These creatures were able to communicate with one another through one shared mind. The mushrooms viewed this shared mind as a strength, and they were kind
I
of
see.
smug dickheads about it.
Smug dickheads,
Ultimately, the
okay.
mushrooms wearily accepted the Pale King's rule, viewing his foresight as a shield to the dangers of the future. Another group living in the fungal wastes is the Mantis tribe. The Mantises have a rich cultural history.
Oh, I
reaching
remember
back
these mantises were so freaking annoying. All the stages are like so crammed together and their hitboxes are so huge.
long before the birth
It's
of
the
Hallownest.
flying one especially.
The
Oh my
Mantises are a
god.
proud tribe, believing in the importance of proving one's physical strength. The Mantises are fiercely territorial, but will show respect to those who display great power.
Okay.
These Fight Club enthusiasts were led by 4
Fight
powerful
Club
Mantis
enthusiasts.
lords, who I guess just kind of
All
sat
right, this is
around
when
waiting for
the
outsiders to
Coliseum of
challenge them.
Fools are
The
here?
Mantis
No,
tribe
it's a
had
different
no interest
place.
in the Pale King's kingdom, but the two communities did come to a truce. In exchange for their independence from Hallownest, the Mantis tribe kept the beasts of Deepnest from invading Hallownest. Not sure why they didn't just go out the other exits from Deepnest, but whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
whatever,
not an
it's
expert on
fine.
border patrol. I don't work at ICE anymore. Let's move on to Deepnest.
No, they're the Mantis sisters. Oh, the right, the tribunal. Yeah. And I think we got kidnapped or something, right?
Now, many of the different tribes of Hallownest were kind enough to leave lore tablets behind,
Or maybe that's a
detailing
different
pretty
one.
much
I don't
everything
remember.
we need to know about them. Unfortunately, the bugs of Deepnest didn't do that.
No, those were different areas, maybe. Oh, okay.
We know that the spiders of Deep Nest had a monarchy because why not?
Yeah, why
Those
not?
are always good, right? Also, within Deep Nest are a separate group of spiders that immigrated to Deep Nest at some point in the past. This group was known as the Weavers,
So there are two
and
groups
they
of
established their own
spiders.
culture and history within Deep Nest. They used looms of silk to weave stories,
Oh,
spells,
this is
and
where you got
shields.
kidnapped. I remember.
One
Yeah,
thing
we
know
got.
for sure about Deep Nest is that they really didn't want anything to do with Hallownest. The struggles of Deep Nest Hallownest relations would become painfully clear as time goes on, but for right now, it seems like the two remained fairly isolated from one another.
Oh, this is the
Another
broken
section of
train. Yeah.
Hallownest includes Green Path. Now, as far as we can tell, the mushrooms, mantises, and spiders of Deep Nest didn't worship any higher beings. There is this giant mushroom corpse in the fungal core, but I don't think this is a higher being.
Wait, that's
I mean, who the hell would want to worship a fat-ass
Wait, this is a
core?
corpse?
But I don't think this is
Oh.
a higher being. I mean, who the hell would want
Oh.
to worship a fat-ass
Oh.
mushroom? Fat-ass slugs? Now that's dope. The land we know as Green Path was created by the higher being known as Un.
Oh, this is
Un
Yeah,
used
this is
her
the.
great mind to dream the vegetation of Green Path into
Right.
the once barren caverns. Un's followers, the Mosskin,
This
were
is
also
the
born out of
person
Un's
you were
dream,
referring
making
to.
her their creator. Green Path at its height was actually much larger than we see in game. At one point, Green Path stretched into both modern-day Queen's Garden and possibly Fog
Oh,
King.
really? Oh,
Green Path's citizens showed themselves to be a fairly developed society.
yeah.
They
Like
built a temple
farting
at the Lake of
everywhere.
Un in order to worship her, and they even had their own line of defense, with Moss Knights showing proficiency in combat, using nails and
These guys were
shells
kind of
as
annoying.
weapons. The Law of Un continued to remain in effect even after the Pale King arrived, but it seems like they allowed the king to establish a road through their lands, leading travelers to the
I
heart of
see.
Hallownest. Hence the name Green,
Green
Path.
Path.
Yeah, Team Cherry really racked
Yeah,
their brains when naming
very,
this area,
very
didn't
creative.
they?
Very creative. Yes.
Next,
Dude, okay, I fucking hated these bees. They're those buzzing sounds were so annoying. They kept giving me like goosebumps for some reason. You love them? What do you mean? They're so okay. Well, this is one bee I remember. When you kill him, there are multiple small bees that come out of his corpse. Disgusting.
and while there is no lore on how
Holy.
these bees can turn into fucking drills, or how they can ignore all known laws of aviation,
Yeah.
we do know how they reacted to the Pale King.
The boom,
These
boom, boom. The
bugs
bouncing
decided to
bees
seal
were
their
also
hive
so
off from
annoying.
the rest of the world, with only patrol bees being able to enter and exit the hive. So yeah, the bees are pretty much pointless in this story. And
Right.
finally, we have the Moth tribe. In-game, the only moth settlement is its resting grounds, but the tribe might have also inhabited the Crystal Peak at one point. Now, as we all know, moths in real life are just complete assholes.
Right. Yeah.
As for the moths in Hollow Knight, well, it's a bit complicated. The moth race is described as being a rather pacifist group, with few ever choosing to take up a weapon. During the Pale King's reign, the moth race delved amongst dreams and the dead,
Right.
displaying the importance of remembering those who have passed, as well as learning how to shape dreams themselves. Similar to the Mosskin, the Moth tribe was born from a higher being known as the Radiance.
Yeah. So this guy's
Radiance
the
is
final
described
boss.
as
The
being
final
light in
boss. The
which
sands
Moth
of
tribe basked.
Hollow Knight.
So she was basically a giant lamp to them. Another important aspect.
Oh, that just hit me. Oh, that's why. That's why the moths worship the Radiance, because moths are drawn to light. I just put two and two together. Oh, that's such big brain, sort of like next level character design. Oh, OMG, guys, his brain is working. It is finally working. It is finally working.
About the Radiance is her ties to dreams and a substance known as essence. Essence are the remains
Right.
of wishes and dreams, and are represented in-game by these dreamcatcher particle effects. Essence can take the form of whispering roots, as well as dream ghosts, both of which are memories taking root in the world. The Radiance appears to be a creature made of essence, but she isn't the only higher being to give off essence.
Oh my
Un
god, it's
has
gonna be a
green
nightmare to
particles,
fight.
the Pale King has gray particles, and this sexy character named
Oh!
Grim gives off fiery.
I remember fighting this guy. Dude, it took me so long to beat, but I was so proud of myself when I beat Grim. I was surprised that the final boss was super easy. Cause like when I beat Grim, like I was like, okay, this guy is super hard to fight. And then when I went to the Hollow Knight, he was just like, okay, you know what I mean? We love Grim and his smoker voice. Grim was badass. Grim was
red
badass.
particles. However, the Radiance appears to be the main god when it comes to dreams, even if other gods also dabble in the dream realm. Getting back to the Moth tribe, it is their interaction with the Pale King that we need to discuss. Basically, the Moths turn their backs on the Radiance completely in order to worship the new light that had appeared, the Pale King's light.
Whoa, that's crazy. They did like a 180? That's insane. The Hollow Knight isn't the final boss. That's the okay. That's crazy, bro. As soon as there's a new girl on the block, they started cheating.
So yeah, Moths are assholes in this game too. With her tribe forsaking her, the Radiance became a forgotten memory, a remnant of the past, and a thing that's definitely not going to come up again later in this video. And so the Pale King's new kingdom was established, Hallownest. But there is one aspect of Hallownest that we need to discuss. Unfortunately, to better understand this, we're going to have to read some poetry.
Wonderful.
In Wilds Beyond they speak your name with reverence and regret. For none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch you taught, we changed. Base instincts were redeemed. A world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed. This is from a poem titled Elegy for Hallownest,
I'm too stupid to understand
by Modemon
it.
the
Sorry.
Teacher. The poem appears at the beginning of every playthrough, and hints at what the Pale King and his kingdom offered. Much of the land outside
the map
of
is
Hallownest
freaking
appears
huge.
to be
It's
a
insane.
wasteland, where bugs survive off of instinct, without the burden of mind. Hallownest somehow taught these bugs and tamed their savagery. Basically, the Pale King changed the instincts of his subjects and granted them higher thought. To get a better picture of this, let's look at two different characters, Boone and Tuck. These adorable panda bug things give us a clear display of Hallownest's effect. While both appear to be the same species of bug, Boone is dumb as a sack of rocks, struggling to string together words, while Tuck speaks fairly clearly. The main difference between these two characters is that while Boone lives outside of Hallownest, Tuck lives beneath the city's capital. Basically, it appears as though Hallownest is a literal holy ground that raises the intelligence of those who dwell within.
So, if I bring my Valorant teammates to Hallownest, will I finally be able to win my games?
King established a path, starting from the kingdom's entrance in King's Pass, winding through Greenpath and the fungal wastes, and finally ending at the massive capital at Hallownest.
Yeah, this is City of Tears,
We now know the capital city as the City of Tears, but that was likely not its original name. The rain that falls down onto the city from the blue lake above
I remember
didn't begin until after the
this.
kingdom collapsed. So unless the capital was originally named by some edgy literature student, the name City of Tears wouldn't have made much sense. The king's motivation for all this appears to have been his desire to be worshipped. The citizens of Hallownest believe that the Pale King created the world and everything in it. Shrines to the king can be found scattered throughout the kingdom, and kings.
Oh my god, I just realized that big ass thing in the background is a statue of the Pale King. I've literally went through this area so many times and I've never noticed that giant thing in the background. That's insane.
The followers of the king. Despite the worship, the Pale King often kept himself hidden from his subjects, possibly to hide his blemishes. I mean, if you look at the size of the real Pale King to his statue in the ancient basin, the man is clearly overcompensating. The Pale King's white
This is like the meme of like when a guy says that he's 6 foot.
Ancient basin, the man is clearly overcompensating. The Pale King's White Palace was also built underneath the city, separating him from his subjects even more so. At the same time, certain powers became shunned in Hallownest, though we don't know for sure if the Pale King had anything to do with this. Lifeblood is a blue liquidy substance that leaves those who drink it feeling refreshed. However, the use of lifeblood was seen as a taboo, and those who used it were demonized as heretics. The use of soul for combat was also shunned. Soul is a sort of life force in Hollow Knight that animates the bodies of living creatures. But some characters are able to control the soul of others to conjure powerful spirits. But aside from a few exceptions, no citizens of Hallownest ever use this power. However, the Pale King didn't rule alone. There was another higher being in the mix.
Oh my god, hello there.
The White Lady. The White Lady is a weird like being that can be found in the modern-day Queen's Gardens. She is encased in a strange cocoon, and we know very little about her. With as much exposition we get for the Pale King, there is next to nothing on the White Lady. but one thing we do know is that she likes to breed.
Hey, yo!
Like a lot.
Fine, dude.
The White Lady would often retreat to the Queen's Gardens, an area of land once
Oh, she
controlled by the
freaky
Moss
like
King.
that. Alright.
How
I
exactly
see you,
she
Team
walked
Cherry.
around
I
and
see
actually
you.
went places is a lore question
Okay, I'll have
my
to
expertise.
read some Hollow Knight doujinshis after.
The White Lady is also known as a pale being, along with the Pale King.
Hey, yo.
What exactly are pale beings? Well, we don't know for sure, but they seem to stand out even amongst higher beings as being even more powerful. I know that's a little confusing, so let's try using an example. I'd say that regular higher beings are like a TP-Link Archer C7 AC1750 wireless dual-band gigabit router, while pale beings are like the Asus RT-AX
I see.
AX6000 dual-band 8x gigabit Wi-Fi router. Under the Pale King, Hallownest underwent a bit of an industrial revolution. He ordered the construction of the stagways, which were used to transport passengers and goods. The Forgotten Crossroads and the storerooms above the City of Tears were used to store goods that traveled along these stagways. The king also ordered the construction of the tramways, because literally no one is safe from the threat of automation. A tram was built between the Forgotten Crossroads and the resting grounds. A second tram was built from the kingdom's edge across the
I think there's
ancient
one
basin
tram that
over to
broke
Deep
down,
Nest.
I think, right?
And then a third tram was
Yeah,
started
this
in
one,
Deep
this one.
Nest and attempted to go further into Deep Nest. Not sure how useful that would have been to the bugs of Hallownest, but whatever. The Pale King's a smart guy. I'm not gonna question him.
Yeah, you know?
But anyway, the Pale King's super smart plan to build a tram
He's a
in Deep
genius,
Nest
so.
ended up getting a few of his tram workers killed. The bugs of Deep Nest rejected the Pale King's attempt to build a tram in
Alright,
their
because these
territory,
were the ones that
further cementing the
worship
poor
the
relationship
void
between the two groups.
think, right?
Aside from convenient fast travel, regular pathways were also used to cart goods around the kingdom. From this was born probably one of the most important groups in Hallownest, and perhaps even all of fiction. An
All of
elusive
fiction?
guild of bugs,
Oh.
simply known as the Mender
Okay.
bugs, took to maintaining the various signs scattered throughout Hallownest.
Okay.
From the journal entry of one Mender bug, we can catch a glimpse into their ancient and unknowable minds.
Aw.
Dear diary,
Aw.
isn't life just the most beautiful thing? Fixing signs, mending posts, let
Aw.
them break, I say. I'm a better mender for all that repairing.
Oh,
I
that's so
sometimes doubt there's a
cute.
single bug in all of Hallownest
I feel so
happier
bad for
than me.
destroying all these signs now.
Another example of the Pale King's
Aw.
expanding infrastructure
The wood is written
is
down.
the
Yes,
Crystal
Mender
Peak.
Bug. They're so
This
adorable.
area is filled with crystals that grow rapidly along walls, ceilings, and even the shells of certain bugs. These crystals were considered valuable to the bugs of Hallownest, resulting in large-scale mining efforts. We don't actually see the crystals used anywhere else in Hallownest, but they are said to contain a sort of energy. The crystals are also said to sing, if you listen very carefully.
Oh? Okay, dude. Okay.
In terms of
course.
military, Hallownest's first line of defense appeared to be a group simply known as the Five Great Knights. The members of this esteemed coalition were Ogrim, Hagamol, Zamir, Drya, and Isma. For being so important, most of the information about these knights has been
like the
lost
Lords
to
of Cinder.
time. Ogrim is the knight we know the most about, since he is one of the few knights still alive during the
Oh,
events
I
of the
remember
game.
this. Yeah.
Ogrim expressed a great amount of loyalty towards the king, and he maybe had something going on with Isma,
Hey,
but
yo.
we really don't know. Hagamol was known for his sense of humor and his soft-spoken voice.
Oh, this guy looks fucking
but at the same
terrifying.
time, he was also dummy thick.
Oh, a dummy thing. Hell yeah.
Mysterious Samir arrived in Hallownest from a serene land, bringing
Our
with her
favorite
a
poop
collection
man.
of delicate flowers. At some point, she also got into a relationship with a mantis, but not just any mantis, a daughter of one of the mantis lords.
Oh, that's gotta be
So yeah,
complicated.
it seems like these great knights were slaying in
Oh,
more ways
yeah.
than one.
Seems like a
All we
lot of
really
the
know
creatures
about
here
Drya
really
is
love
that
breeding,
she was
huh?
fierce, caring, and wise. As for Isma, she was described as
Drya
being
looks like
kind.
she can
She
be
also appears to be
Hornet's
some sort of weird
mentor or
plant
something.
life form, but there's no information on where she's from or what her powers were. The Five Great Knights play an important role in the Champion's Call, the Knotted Grove, and the Battle of the Blackworm.
Battle of the Blackworm.
We have no idea what these events were or how they affected Hallownest, but they sound cool nonetheless. During Hallownest's reign, there was another strange area that seemed to exist separate from the Pale King's rule. Carved out of the corpse of an ancient bug, an area called the Colosseum of Fools was constructed.
Ah, yes, I remember
and it was
this.
a destination for warriors from outside Hallownest. The sole purpose for fighting in the Colosseum appeared to be simply for glory, with a mysterious figure known as the Lord Fool overseeing the combat.
I feel like he's been dead for quite a bit,
but... We don't know when the Colosseum
but...
was constructed, or if the Pale King was involved, but one of his servants, the Pale Lurker,
Oh, this guy was
became
so
a champion in the
annoying.
Colosseum,
This guy was so
perhaps
annoying to
indicating the Pale
fight.
King's approval. And finally, there was the Royal Waterways, where the fecal excrement of the kingdom was washed out into the fungal wastes. This area saw the rise of a species of parasite-like creatures called
I remember
flukes.
these people. These people
The
were
flukes
disgusting.
spawned from the fluke farm.
The monster. That's crazy. I remember this. I remember seeing this thing and literally calling it the monster on stream. It's crazy. It's crazy. Am I wrong? Hornet's VA voices the what? Hornet's VA voices the no way. No, my perception of Hornet is now ruined. No. You're welcome. No.
Monster with cavities in which tinier flukes live. There really isn't too much lore involved with the flukes.
Yeah, but they're
I do need
disgusting.
to point out that the fluke marm is canonically a MILF.
Okay, well, you know what's so crazy is that I also have noticed that these flukes literally look like sperm cells.
Involved with the flukes,
Just
but I
gonna
do need to
mention
point
that.
out that the fluke marm is canonically a MILF. Like, that's not even debatable. The sky is blue, 2 + 2 = 4, and we all want to fuck
Well,
this thing.
let's not clump us all into the same group. You know, I don't know who we are, but I'm not part of we. I'm not part of this collective we that we're talking about here.
And so this was the kingdom of Hallownest at its height. Hallownest was a vast kingdom connected by a network of stagways and tram stations. The bugs
The
of Hallownest
Pale King
mourned
did a
their
great
dead on
job,
the resting
yeah.
grounds, engaged in commerce using Geo, the de facto currency of the region, and a thriving capital located in the middle of the kingdom. The Pale King had succeeded in crafting a full-blown society, but we all know there are pitfalls to living in a society.
Yeah.
As a
Here we
suspiciously
go.
knowledgeable hunter points out in his journal, the Pale King had created a population of weak and pathetic creatures. The bugs of Hallownest did not hunt for their own food and had become complacent with
What do
their
they even
comfort.
eat
This is
actually?
even more obvious with the east wing of the capital. These greedy members of Hallownest's
This is what I was talking about
became
earlier,
complete
yeah.
cowards, obsessed with riches and plumb from excess wealth. The bugs living in Hallownest Prime looked quite different than the instinctive simpletons they once were. Their savagery had been replaced with intelligence, and through that intellect, they gave the Pale King the devotion and service he desired. And while there were a few snags along the way, they were shining times for the king and his subjects. Resting at the threshold of Hallownest is a strange lore tablet, proclaiming Hallownest to be the last and only civilization. It calls Hallownest an eternal kingdom. This appears to have been the Pale King's goal, for Hallownest to stand against a wasted world as a final beacon for civilization. And that was the Pale King's ultimate folly, to think that he could succeed where so many others had failed
Folly
before.
is like
Long
arrogance, right? Or mistake. It's like a mistake induced by arrogance, right?
before the Pale Kings or the Barry Bensons of the world, the land of Hallownest was
Something like
controlled
that,
by an
yeah.
ancient caste. Hints of Hallownest history are littered throughout the land, with the most notable examples being the soul totems and arcane eggs. One sect of these ancient bugs didn't worship a god like the Pale King or any lord, but instead a dark and mysterious substance
Yeah, I
known
remember
as
this
the
area.
Void.
This freaked me out.
This ancient caste once also tried to lay claim to the entire land of Hallownest, but they too failed. In his quest to conquer all of Hallownest, the Pale King had made an enemy long forgotten, an enemy that was about to be
Yeah.
remembered. I mentioned earlier that the Moth tribe entirely forgot about the Radiance in order to worship the Pale King.
Yeah, they cheated
But that
on the
isn't
Radiance.
quite true. Memories of her still lingered, and hushed whispers of faith kept the Radiance alive. At the summit of the Crystal Peak, a location known as Hallownest Crown, a strange collection of glyphs can be found. Joining these glyphs is a statue of the Radiance, presiding over the kingdom below. This old summit is the sole standing shrine left to the
Right.
Radiance. This was built in order to keep the memory of the Radiance alive. The Radiance's light began to appear in the dreams of Hallownest citizens. This light
In the
manifested
dreams.
itself in an infection that ravaged through the
Oh,
kingdom's
wait,
tunnels.
oh my god, wait, so
Those
all of that was because of the Radiance?
Infected
That's so
would fall into a
freaky,
deep
man.
sleep and awaken with broken minds. Some of the lesser bugs tried to
Ew,
resist
I
the
remember this
Radiance's
infection
light,
thing.
which only resulted in them
Disgusting.
being consumed by it even more so. Many infected bugs
Oh
lost
my
their wills
god.
and began attacking bugs that weren't infected. The infection also twisted the bodies of its hosts, causing them to bloat and occasionally develop orange cysts on their bodies.
Ew.
For many victims, they were reverted back to their basic instincts, carrying out the duties they once fulfilled in life, but now as mindless
interesting.
slaves.
Did you
caught
miss
up in
that?
the
No,
once
I saw.
victim
Was it this
the
one?
infection
The bee, right?
and began attacking bugs that weren't infected.
This guy, right, from the bee movie.
The
Is it from the bee movie? I'm not
infection
sure.
also twisted the bodies of its hosts, causing them to bloat and occasionally develop orange cysts on their bodies.
Yeah, this
For
is
many
disgusting.
victims, they were reverted back to their basic
Freaky ass
instincts,
Radiance, bro.
carrying out the duties they once fulfilled in life, but now as mindless slaves. Those caught up in the infection were linked into the Radiance's hive mind, allowing her to control their bodies if needed.
Yeah, it
As the
really sucked
infection spread
when
across Hallownest,
Green Pass
many
also got
groups looked to
infected.
solutions to fight off the Radiance's light. The gates to the City of Tears were closed in an attempt to keep the infection from reaching the city. The stagways were also shut down at some point, and many of the stags eventually died out.
Oh,
But
that
some
was
took
all
more
because of.
proactive efforts against the
see.
infection. The scholars of the Soul Sanctum decided to harness the power of Soul in an attempt to fight the infection. This resulted in the deaths of hundreds of bugs,
Oh my
whose souls were
God.
sucked out and injected into the bodies of the scholars. Their goal was to achieve some kind of pure focus, which would somehow protect them from plagues of the mind. The scholars' leader, the Soul Master, was driven mad by the sheer power of Soul. and
I
his
remember this
entire
guy being
sect
super
failed to
annoying as
avoid
well.
infection. But hey, at least they took as many innocent people down with them as they could.
Yeah, that's.
The Mantis tribe,
You
showing
know what's so crazy is that this lore so far really reminds me of Dark Souls, right? The massive amount of dead bodies. The fact that you also have to like defeat. I'm pretty sure you need to defeat 4 main dreamers to fight them. The final Hollow Knight, and also the whole theme of pilgrimage and. I don't know. It just gives me a lot of like Dark Soul vibes.
stronger will than
Like
the
in
common dog.
obviously in Dark Souls, people worship the flame, the first flame. While here, people worship either the Pale King or like the Radiance or even the Void. Very interesting. Bug Souls, yeah. And like even the location of the Void is so similar to the location of the Abyss in Dark Souls 3. It's just I don't know because like the Abyss is also like I digress.
bug were able to stave off the infection. However, one of the 4 Mantis Lords
Oh.
turned against his sisters. He and his followers took in the infection willingly, as it gave them more
Oh,
strength and courage.
damn.
At some point during all this, the Traitor Lord and his followers were exiled from the Mantis village, eventually taking up residence in the Queen's Gardens. The Traitor Lord's daughter ended up dying at some point.
Oh.
This is the same Mantis that was in a relationship with Zamir, one of the 5 Great Knights.
Oh.
But the Mantises rejected their union because of Zamir's outsideness.
Xenophobia
As a
much?
gamer,
That's crazy.
this type of prejudice is all too familiar, and honestly, it makes me sick.
I love the Doki Doki Literature Club wallpaper
With the
based.
5 Great Knights completely useless to fight against the infection, the Pale King devised his own scheme. A scheme involving a strange substance known as Void. As I mentioned earlier, the Pale King's White Palace was built in an area called the Ancient Basin, but his castle wasn't the only noteworthy thing down there. At the bottom of the Ancient Basin was the entrance to
Yeah.
a pit, known as the Abyss. Within the Abyss was a lake composed of void. The Pale King realized that this void could be given form, as evidenced by an imprint of such, deep within the Abyss, possibly left there by the ancient civilization that predated Hallownest. The Pale King devised a workshop in his palace, where he placed void in armor shells.
Is this
imbued with
where we
soul,
come in?
creating servants known as King's Molds and Wing Molds. These void creatures were somehow
It's more than-
imprinted with the desire of the Pale King, so that they would serve him. It isn't clear when the Pale King started making these creatures.
Oh.
There is evidence to imply that even common bugs were aware of King's molds. But the point is, the Pale King turned to the void in order to create another creature.
Right.
One that he believed could contain the Radiance and her infection. He tried to create a pure vessel. The Radiance's infection needs its host to have a will and a mind in order to enslave it. A pure vessel would be a creature made of void, designed to lack those features. The Pale King believed that by harnessing the void inside a pure vessel, he would be able to stop the infection and keep Hallownest lasting eternal. But his
Interesting.
method for creating this so-called pure vessel was incredibly cruel.
Ooh.
This is where the White Lady and her King Kong-sized
King
libido
Kong-sized
come into play.
libido, holy.
These two higher beings engaged in a union of some kind, resulting
I'm
in
not
the
gonna lie, if we're looking at the Pale King, I don't think the
These
Pale
two
King has
higher
the stamina,
beings
bro.
engage-
I don't think he has the constitution to keep up with the White Lady, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like a one pump kind of guy, you know what I mean?
engaged in a union of
One
some
pu-
kind,
one pump
resulting
chump.
in the creation of several eggs that were dropped down into the abyss. There, the void seeped.
But do you have the sound? Of course I do, what do you mean? I'm like the #1 e-boy in Southeast Asia. Obviously I have to have the stamina.
Into these eggs, corrupting the offspring of the Pale King and the White Lady. This act resulted in the
Oh.
creation of the vessels.
Right, I
The
remember
vessels
this,
are
I
not
remember
technically
this.
considered to be alive. They are shells created from the Pale King and White Lady that have been filled with the void. Within each vessel is a shade, a completely void being hidden behind the face of the vessel. Vessels are also non-gendered, I guess because they're dead or something. I'm not sure if that's how that works, but whatever. I'm not an expert on these kinds of things. I don't work at ICE anymore.
Okay.
Thousands of vessels were created during this process, but only one was chosen as the pure vessel. This particular
Which is
vessel, chosen
us.
by the Pale King,
Oh.
was deemed the Hollow Knight, and was taken away to the White Palace. But I want to take a bit of a closer look at this part of the story. There are a number of questions and theories surrounding this moment that I really want to dig into.
Oh, I remember this
The big
moment,
question
yeah.
surrounding this moment is, why was the Hollow Knight chosen over any other vessel? One common theory is that the Pale King took these vessels back to the White Palace and evaluated them using his giant collection of buzzsaws.
Oh.
This theory is probably the least
What
likely
the fuck is
explanation.
this?
It kinda exists just to explain the buzzsaws, which is quite the mystery, I'll admit.
What the
but it doesn't
fuck is
really mesh with
this?
the vessels very
What
well.
is this the White Palace? This is oh my god, you have to go through this to get to. Oh, kill me, bro. What the
How does being good at Super Meat Boy prove that you are a worthy vessel?
Very good
And while
question.
thinking about logistics in a game about magic bugs is never a good idea, how exactly did the Pale King transfer these thousands of vessels to his palace without characters like the Dung Defender finding out? So this
Very
means that
good
the Pale
question,
King
very
probably
good
made
question.
his decision without taking any of the vessels out of the abyss. So how did the Pale King make his evaluation? I think the best explanation comes from a theory I originally heard from a user named Golden Flower Fan. Basically, the
Golden Flower Fan. When I hear the Golden Flower, one character comes to mind. Interesting.
vessels were hatched down at the bottom of the abyss, and the first one to make it to the top was
If you know, you
chosen
know.
by
If
the
you know,
Pale
you know.
King. In a memory of this event,
Yeah, if
we
you know,
see
you
vessels
know.
falling from above back down into the pit of the abyss. Perhaps these vessels weren't being cast down into the abyss, but fell while trying to escape out of it. The lore tablet outside the abyss appears to support this theory. It reads, "Our pure vessel has ascended. Beyond lies only the refuse and regret of its
Damn.
creation. We shall enter that place no longer." This tablet was likely written right after the Hollow Knight was chosen, considering that is when the entrance to the abyss was sealed off. The tablet proclaims that the pure vessel has ascended, or in other words, climbed out of the abyss. And while cut content should never be considered canon, I would just like to point out that an earlier version of this tablet, found in the game's code, was even more explicit about this. It read,
Oh?
"From below, our pure vessel has ascended." But how does making it to the top of the abyss first prove that the Hollow Knight is somehow a perfectly hollow vessel? Well, I think this whole concept might just be a misconception. What if the Hollow Knight wasn't any different from the other vessels? all the vessels were made in the exact same way after all.
True.
The idea that the Hollow Knight was somehow more hollow than the other vessels comes from the fact that there were so many vessels created in the first place. If they only needed one, then why create so goddamn many?
That's a good,
this is like
fair
Octomom
question.
on steroids. Well, these are bugs we're talking about, so it would
Yeah,
make sense
that's
that
disgusting.
multiple offspring
Ew.
would come from one egg. And it might have been a precaution to produce multiple vessels in hopes that at least
It's
one
like a
would
bit
be able to
much, you know?
successfully escape
Like
the
an
abyss.
entire village of it, an
Now
entire
another
nation
explanation could be
almost.
that the Pale King
Just
just
broken
yeeted other
vessels.
vessels that made it to the top first, after determining that they weren't hollow, which would better explain why so many were created. Ultimately, the exact details aren't super important, but I do find it interesting how many different interpretations can be pulled from this part of the lore. After the Hollow Knight was chosen, the Pale King sealed the doorway to the abyss, leaving the discarded vessels to rot away in darkness. These actions were not taken lightly by the Pale King or the White Lady. Both participants expressed shame in what they did, but saw no other option to save the kingdom. But the vessels weren't the only poor saps sealed away in the abyss. There's also a lighthouse that was built on top of a naturally formed spire, its light shining down on an ocean of abyss below. Inside was one of the Pale King's royal retainers, who was left in charge of keeping the lighthouse turned on. So this brave soul was willingly sealed in a dark and dangerous tomb for the rest of his life, just so he could not pull a
So he
lever.
could
Well,
not
at
pull a
least
lever.
he was living with purpose.
I guess so.
With the abyss sealed and the Hollow Knight chosen, the Pale King's plan was beginning to come together. The Hollow Knight was raised and trained to prime form, causing it to grow several times its original size. We don't know exactly why this happened, but I guess the Hollow Knight is just a grower and not a shower.
Okay, well, I'm
We
a
know that the
grower
Hollow Knight
and a
was trained to
shower.
use a nail, but why was this even necessary? One possible explanation is that the Hollow Knight needed to protect itself in case an intruder
That's
tried to kill it.
crazy.
You know, like the player. Or perhaps this was important in the process of containing the Radiance. Unfortunately, the details of that are never fully explained. The Hollow Knight might have somehow focused the Radiance inside itself, but Team Cherry gives us no explanation of how that might have worked. But that still wasn't enough for the Pale King. Additional seals were needed in order to protect the Hollow Knight's physical body while the Radiance was trapped inside of it. To achieve this, the Pale King sought the help of 3 particular bugs, who would later be known as the Dreamers: Lurien the Watcher, Motomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast. Lurien is definitely the most mysterious of the 3 Dreamers. He lived in the Watcher Spire.
This is
in
the free
City of
one, right? The
Tears.
one that you get for free,
From
the one you
there,
don't have to fight.
Lurien watched over the city with his telescope. Lurien was a pretty big fan of the king, so it probably took little convincing for him to lie down for him. Lurien might also be tied to another strange incident that occurred in the City of Tears. Hidden on some of Lurien's lore tablets are images of jars, the same jars that can be found stockpiled in the Tower of Love. This building sits on the outskirts of the city, and is the setting of one of the most bizarre bosses in the game, the Collector. The Collector is a void construct that appears to have been made from the same mold used to create the King's molds.
Okay.
But the Collector is unique because, well,
I don't think I fought this guy. That is crazy. I don't think I fought this guy actually.
the Collector stayed in the Tower of Love with a noble bug who likely
Oh yeah, that's so freaky. Like when you see the streaks of black coming down the eyes, it makes it seem like they were crying of some sort, or some sort.
the establishment. In the tower, a number of bugs can be found captured in jars, implying that these two were tasked with collecting these creatures. However, the Collector somehow became obsessed with grubs, creating a map to keep track
Oh
of grubs and
right,
captured
this
in
guy was the
jars,
one who chopped the
as
grub.
well as keeping a
Oh,
strange shrine displaying a grub in the style of the Vitruvian Man.
yeah, that is
Eventually,
weird.
the bug staying
Weird
with the
champ.
Collector decided to lock it inside the Tower of Love, and fled to the Queen's Gardens, where it died, likely due to overexposure
Oh, this
to
was the one
void.
who.
Despite being locked up in the tower, the Collector is still spotted by the Hunter at some point, which either means this only happened recently, or the Hunter has been farting around for a long ass time. We have no idea what these creatures were trying to do. It's implied that the Collector was trying to preserve the creatures of Hallownest, perhaps trying to protect them from the spread of the infection.
My alarm, sorry. I have to take my medicine. Okay, I am back.
but we don't know where the collector's obsession with grubs originated.
Yeah, like,
and while
that's
Larian
kind of
does seem
weird, champ.
connected to all of this, we don't know how involved he was with this operation, or what its end goal exactly was. Motomon the teacher lived in the teacher's archives, a library built atop a lake of acid in the Fog Canyon. The lower half of her body consists of tentacles, making her a popular subject for the thriving Hollow Knight R34 community.
I've actually never seen any of the like Hollow Knight R34. Now I'm interested though. I also remember because this area I just could not find the map for. So imagine me being lost in this new ass area with like exploding jellyfishes all around you. It's so, oh my god, it was a nightmare.
And the Fog Canyon as a whole are also filled with these strange Metroid knockoffs. These creatures are likely related to Monomon.
Yeah, I hated
way.
these jellyfishes,
they
man.
They could be her live offspring, her test tube babies, or possibly even her ships.
Wow.
Motomon uses futuristic cathode ray tube things to store information about Hallownest. Several terminals in the teacher's archive go into detail about the Pale King's plan to defeat the Radiance, indicating that Motomon had intimate knowledge.
Yeah, and I think she regretted it, I think, right? I think at one point she said she, like, I don't think we even fought Monomon. We got to Monomon and then she said that she regretted it or something like that.
Finally, the Pale King sought the help of Hera the Beast, the Queen of Deepnest. Now, as I mentioned earlier, relations between Hallownest
so
and
I don't
Deepnest were
see how Hera would want to help.
Not great.
Yeah.
Unlike the other two dreamers, Hera needed to be convinced in order to help the Pale King.
Mm.
Hera would eventually agree to become a dreamer in exchange for a child.
Oh.
The Pale King agreed, and the two engaged in a dalliance, which is a fancy way of saying they totally boned.
Whoa! wait, that's crazy. So I will die for you, but first you need to breed me. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Engaged in a dalliance, which is a fancy way of saying they totally boned.
Wow.
The White Lady was okay with this arrangement. In fact, she might have been watching from the closet.
Aww.
The motive behind Hera's request is never elaborated on, but it appears as though the King of Deepnest was dead at this point.
Oh, so she wanted
Hera
an heir.
was a common bug, so perhaps she desired the Pale King's pale seed so that her child could be of high birth. The bargain between Hera and the Pale King resulted in the birth of Hornet. She became known as the gendered child because, unlike the Pale King's other children, Hornet was not hollowed out by the abyss.
Oh, that's how Hornet came to be, bro. Oh my god.
Hera and Hornet spent little time together, as Hera had to make good on her end of the bargain. And so the three dreamers were put to rest. Through their actions, a seal was placed over the black egg, prohibiting entrance into the chamber. These dreamers also had their own protection. At the base of Lurian's spire, the Watcher Knights guarded access to their master's body. Motomon's body was protected by a giant jellyfish named Umu.
Yep, I remember this person.
Motomon entrusted her servant Quirrell with a mask which would be required to break an additional seal she had placed over herself. So she basically is double wrapping herself. As for Hera, we're not really sure what protected her, since it is never actually seen in-game. We don't know where this creature is hiding, but whoever it is, they really suck at their job. Now there appears to be one more element to the Pale King's plan, involving the Weavers. Hidden away in the Weaver's den is an incomplete seal of binding, woven from silk. This design prominently features the Hollow Knight's head, and can be found in the White Palace, as well as blocking the exit during the Hollow Knight fight. Silk spools created by the Weavers can—
hang on. Let me allow that. I want to be boned by the Hollow Knight. Yeah, the Hollow Knight is kind of an alpha, no?
Deepnest,
he's like super tall, super powerful.
These spools can also be found in the Pale King's workshop. We know that the Weavers were closely tied to Hera and Hornet, so their actions might have been a part of the deal between the Pale King and Hera. Once the Hollow Knight was ready, the Radiance was somehow channeled into the vessel, which was then placed inside of a giant black egg located in the Forgotten Crossroads. This egg was built to sustain the Hollow Knight, and itself appears to be fashioned from void.
Yeah, big boy, yippee.
And the entrance to the black egg was locked behind a powerful seal created by the three dreamers. Initially, this convoluted plan actually worked, and the infection was successfully contained. Memorials to the Hollow Knight and the Dreamers were erected in the City of Tears
But it's
and
still
the resting grounds.
eventually.
But this is the part of the story where things get a little bit hazy. By the time these statues were
Little size diff.
citizens had
Okay.
taken to writing on parchment
Bro, it's
woven
actually
from spider
freaky.
silk, which was all destroyed when water started pouring down onto the city. We don't know how long the Hollow Knight was able to completely contain the infection. Bugs from Dirtmouth used to go to the Temple of the Black Egg to pray, saying they felt at peace within the walls. But after a while, they stopped going, perhaps indicating that the infection was beginning to leak out again.
Yeah, so this Hollow Knight
The infectious
thing
air
was like a
continued to seep through
temporary
Hallownest for
solution, no?
years,
Yeah.
eventually even reaching the deepest parts of the kingdom. As it turns out, the Pale King's pure vessel wasn't quite so pure after all. The Hollow Knight had been tarnished by an idea instilled. While the game never explicitly tells us what that idea was, it does hint strongly at what it might be. Hidden away in the White Palace is a memory showing the Hollow Knight and the Pale King sharing a moment. The Hollow Knight might have developed a parental bond to the Pale King, and who could blame it? The Pale King is a pretty great dad after all.
Yeah, of
You
course.
know, if you ignore the infanticide and
Yeah, of
Remember
course.
those
Of
smug
course.
mushroom dickheads? Well, it turns out their trust in the Pale King was a complete mistake. That shared mind isn't looking too good now, is it?
Yeah.
In the fungal core, the corpse of a giant mushroom lies dormant. Its final thoughts were, "Pale worm, what good to see a demise unavoidable?"
What good to
This could
foresee a
imply that
demise
the Pale King
unavoidable?
always knew that his kingdom was doomed. All he could do was delay the inevitable. This is likely the moment when Hallownest, as it once was, entirely collapsed. The Hollow Knight had not completely stopped the infection, and while it may have taken a while, Hallownest was eventually brought low. It's at this point that characters
Why not
and
create
areas
another
begin to
Hollow
resemble
Knight?
as we know them in game.
Why
When it
just
became
not
clear that the Hollow
keep
Knight
creating
was
Hollow
not able
Knights?
to contain the Radiance, the Pale King resorted to his final plan. He fucked off, hiding
Okay.
himself, his White Palace, and his Pale Court in the
Wow, what a
At this
king.
point, all of the furniture in the palace was covered under white sheets, similar to how people in the real world cover their furniture while away on long trips. The palace was also completely covered with thorns and
Wow.
buzzsaws, similar to how people in the real world
Oh, yeah,
cover
for
their houses
sure.
with thorns and
Yeah.
buzzsaws.
Just
The
like
Pale
that.
King
Yeah,
would
yeah, of
eventually
course.
pass away while sitting on his throne in the White Palace. There's no confirmation on what killed him, but there are a few things to consider.
Old age,
The
maybe?
throne room is incredibly dark compared to the rest of the palace, and the particle effects and ambient track in this room are identical to that of the Abyss.
Oh.
All of the king's molds surrounding the Pale King are dead. The ancient
Ooh, they
basin
even have,
itself
like, the-
also has become stained with the presence of void, as it can be seen as high as the rundown elevator shaft leading back to the city.
Oh, man.
Remember that bug that was sealed away in the Abyss to make sure the lighthouse wasn't turned off?
He
Well,
turned it off.
The lighthouse
Yeah.
was turned off. I guess that whole living with purpose thing is a crock of shit after all. It seems as
That's
though the Sea
crazy.
of Void itself actually convinces Bug
That's
to betray his
crazy.
king and turn off the
Tell me.
lighthouse. Now I know what you're thinking. Exactly how conscious
Yeah,
is
see, like,
the
that is
Void?
so freaky.
Is
Like,
the
look at
Void
that.
able to think for itself?
That's so.
Can it
What even
form
is that?
strategies? Does it host a podcast? Well,
Okay.
according to this Chozo statue ripoff, the Void is powerful, but not unified. So while it can thrash around at things that come near it, or call out in unison to turn off a light, it's not a single conscious being. Getting back to the Pale King, one could argue that the Void might have played a role in his ultimate demise, and I've argued that viewpoint in the past, but we have to remember that there isn't enough evidence to know for sure. As an expert lawyer and a good friend of mine, Johnny Cochran, once said, "Any evidence that the Void was involved in the Pale King's death is circumstantial." My name is Johnny Cochran. Just above the White Palace, the bugs in the City of Tears weren't faring much better. Even if we ignore the fact that the infection was still around, there were other issues that helped lead to the city's downfall. Due to the gates being sealed, some bugs resorted to cannibalism in order to avoid starvation. And there's also that metric fuckton of corpses lining the walls of
Oh,
the
yeah,
Soul
of course.
Sanctum. When all was said and done, the only citizen left standing is Eternal Emelita.
I don't
who just
think I
laughs her ass
remember
off about it like she's a fucking Dark Souls
Dark Souls character.
The White
Okay, now I
Lady ends
remember
up
her,
in a
yeah.
cocoon deep within the Queen's gardens. She decided to place bindings on herself in order to keep her from spreading her seed.
Stop being
She
horny.
claims that this is because
She literally
of the
put
shame
put
she
herself
feels
in horny
helping the
jail.
Pale
That's
King
insane.
create the vessels. But honestly, it's probably just her kink.
That's what I said.
The White Lady
Yeah.
also diminished her power, possibly as a way to keep herself hidden from unwanted visitors. Outside her cocoon, Drya stood guard, protecting her queen from the violent traitor mantises. Drya is eventually killed off by these bugs, which is actually pretty pathetic if you think about it. I mean, we're talking like the Netgear WPN824N N150 wireless router pathetic.
Maybe she was worn down over the years, you know?
Let's move on.
But do you have that king too? I don't know. Never tried. Never tried, you know?
Used to open one of the gates to the City of Tears. At some point, Hagemol's armor shell was stolen by a maggot. Now, maggots were generally looked down upon and forced to do menial labor. They were incredibly weak and basically deserved all of the discrimination they got. But this one maggot decided to turn the tide, so he stole Hagemol's shell so that he could defend his downtrodden brothers. His actions weren't motivated by the infection, but instead was the result of how hierarchical caste systems always lead to revolution from the working class. True fate can only be achieved, blah blah blah, capitalism is bad, subscribe to my Patreon. Ogre moved to the royal waterways and started living in shit.
Living in shit literally, quite literally.
Now I love wallowing in shit as much as the next guy, but you'd have to really love shit to put up with living with the flukes. The Dung Defender kept an unwavering sense of duty
Dung Defender is a
king
crazy name, by the way.
Fellow knights. So much so that he made shit statues of them.
Yeah, shit statues.
Ogrim acted as the defender of the pipeways, as well as Isma's Grove. A section of the royal waterways became filled with acid, and in the middle of it all rests Isma's corpse, which has been overcome by plant life.
It's just Isma's pee.
Isma is likely the one responsible for this acid blight, but we have no idea what happened to her. Hornet's whereabouts during this time are fairly mysterious.
Hornet,
we know that she departed Deep Nest and didn't return until the events of the game. At some point, she took to guarding Hallownest from intruding warriors, as well as the cast-off shell in the Kingdom's Edge. Despite the Kingdom's woes at large, fortunately this fate did not befall one of the fandom's favorite characters. The Menderbugs continued to fix the broken signs and wayposts of Hallownest. From a diary entry, we can see that one Menderbug in particular had found himself on the precipice of a long and loving relationship.
Hello again, diary. Not long now until the next Minder Bash. For a stealthy
wait, I just got back. What is this, Minder Bash?
Not long now until the next Minder Bash.
What the fuck? Wait, what?
We're a riotous bunch when we get together. And Minderberry kept flashing me that smile. It might be time to muster my courage and act on it.
Yeah,
I love my home and my life, but sharing it with another? Why, that'd be the berry on top.
The berry on top, okay.
Greenpath also underwent some changes during this time. The Mosskin were waiting for Un's call, which would bring them back into the dream they were originally born from. But for some reason, Un's strength deteriorated. We don't know why this happened exactly. Was it due to the White Lady claiming part of her kingdom? Was it somehow due to the infection? Some Mosskin believe that Un went into hiding, but it appears as though Un is, in fact, calling to her children. But many of the Mosskin are unable to hear her call. Instead, many Mosskin seem to have taken the Radiance's infection into their leaves, which might explain why Greenpath became overgrown with vegetation despite Un's deteriorating powers. Mossy vagabonds even openly chose to forsake Un and worship the Radiance. Another tribe to be screwed over by the Radiance is the Hive, which fell to the infection after the death of their leader, Hive Queen Vespa. But it appears as though this had little effect on their civilization. The Radiance's hive mind was already familiar to the bees, since the hive probably operated under something similar already. So in other words, the hive probably made out the best in this whole situation. Let's turn our attention back to the hive. After all,
the hive was such a weird part of the game because I feel like it didn't lead to anything.
It's their god that keeps killing everybody.
Yeah.
While the moth tribe didn't fare too well, actually, as pretty much the entire tribe died out. The only known survivor is the Seer. Despite the loss of her tribe,
it's the person
Seer continued to tend to the graves in the resting
sells us stuff,
while also waiting the arrival of the Wielder, a mysterious being that her tribe has dreamt of for a while. In the Kingdom's Edge, the land became covered in ash melting off of the worm's decomposing corpse. The Colosseum of Fools continued to thrive.
Oh yeah, they're just having fun.
Away at some point,
nobody really cares. Yeah,
really seems to
that's crazy.
Care. The fools inside the Colosseum were infected, but still seem to have maintained control over themselves. It seems possible that these bugs took in the infection willingly, similar to the Traitor Lord and his followers. This would have given them an edge in combat, similar to using steroids, but without the whole shrinking testicles thing.
Okay.
However, even the Traitor Lord and his followers went mad, so what makes these fools any more special?
I mean,
As
there's
for
a
the
reason
Pale
why they're
King's
called
champion,
fools.
The Pale Lurker, well, she just went the normal kind of insane. There appears to have been another unforeseen event with the Pale King's plan. When the Hollow Knight was originally chosen, the door to the Abyss was sealed, trapping the discarded vessels within. But apparently, some vessels didn't get the memo. Vessel corpses can be found littered throughout the kingdom. There's one in the Ancient Basin, one in the Green Path, and several trapped in Nosk's lair in Deep Nest. Another vessel that escaped from the Abyss is the player character, the Knight. The exact details on how the vessels escaped the Abyss is unclear. There are indications that they might have slipped into Deep Nest through some old passageway, given void influences in part of the area, and all the corpses found in Nosk's lair. At some point, all entrances to Hallownest were closed off, with the old well-endured mouth being the only way to sneak back in. Despite this, several people have wormed their way into the kingdom, with few ever returning. Characters like Relic Seeker Lem seemed content to just pillage artifacts from the ruined kingdom, but other bugs seemed interested in something greater. In the Howling Cliffs rests the corpse of a member of the Grim Troop.
Yeah, I remember
task of
this.
this bug appears to have been to seek out Hallownest, so that the troop might be summoned to the kingdom in the future. The Grim Troop are basically a group of bugs that serve a higher being known as the Nightmare Heart. The troop keeps the heart alive by feeding on the nightmares of fallen kingdoms.
I remember this guy.
This process also involves sacrificing the troop master to his own child because, hey, look at this cool ass boss battle. Another important group that traveled to Hallownest are the God Seekers.
Never
After
seen
being
this
abandoned
person.
by their old gods, the gods
Or
of
is this
thunder and the
DLC? Is
gods
there
of
even a
rain,
DLC?
these bugs left their home in the Land of Storms, seeking out a new god to worship. The God Seekers looked to gods to save them from their own silent mind. While traveling through the wastelands, the God Seekers constructed devices called God Tuners, which helped them seek out new gods. Through this device, they were able to detect the lingering power of the Pale King and find their way to Hallownest. When they arrived, however, the God Seeker was forced into hibernation. She was encased in a strange sarcophagus-like cocoon, which was itself chained
Literally
up
got
with a
locked
lock.
away. Damn.
It's not clear how this forced hibernation worked, seeing as the cocoon appears
Bro
to have
has
been made by the
drip.
God
He
Seeker
does.
herself. As for who put the cocoon in chains, I think the most likely candidate is the Dung Defender, considering how the God Seeker's cocoon is found in the junk pit in the waterways, an area the Dung Defender has tasked himself with protecting.
Makes sense.
This was the general picture of Hallownest after the Hollow Knight was sealed inside the Temple of the Black Egg. The kingdom was stuck in a kind of stasis, with the Pale King civilization destroyed and the Radiance unable to break free from her chains. The Pale King was rebelling against nature, trying to keep his work standing indefinitely. The stasis over Hallownest held for an age. How long is that exactly? Well, we have no idea. As I'm sure you've noticed, there really isn't a timeline for anything that happens in this game. We also have no idea how long any of these bugs can actually live. Elderbug wasn't around to see the stagways open, but we know several other characters were, implying that Elderbug is probably one of the youngest characters in the whole game.
Okay, why is there
Implying that
why is there John
is
Tron
probably
there?
one of the
John.
youngest characters in the whole game. But this stasis over Hallownest wasn't going to last forever. At some point, the Radiance erupted out of the Hollow Knight, cracking its shell and releasing a loud and powerful roar. The amount of infection leaking out of the Hollow Knight...
I'm gonna sleep a little. LMFAO, for sure. Rest well, Zenith. Thank you for stopping by.
became even greater. The many corpses that lined the roads and cities of the kingdom sprang to life with the amplified power of the infection. This strengthened infection prompted the departure of the Weavers back to their old home. Now this old home might actually be Farloom, the kingdom in which Hollow Knight Silksong...
Farloom mentioned? Wait, departure of the Weavers back
Now this
there.
old home might actually be Farloom, the kingdom in which Hollow Knight Silksong takes place. But the amount of knowledge we have about Silksong right now is pathetic, so I'm not saying that's confirmed or anything. This is also around the time that Quirrell arrives back in Hallownest. His memory of Monomon appears to have been clouded due to his time outside of Hallownest. These events are depicted in the Quirrell prequel comic, which also shows an image of the Hollow Knight with a pre-cracked shell. This could mean that Quirrell's arrival happens roughly the same time the Hollow Knight's shell cracks. At around the same time Quirrell arrives in Hallownest, we also see the arrival of the player character, who is commonly referred to as the Knight. The Knight was one of the lucky vessels that was able to make its way out of the abyss.
Mhm.
Somehow, the Knight ended up venturing beyond Hallownest and into the wilds beyond. It's implied that the Knight was called to Hallownest by either the sealed Hollow Knight or the Radiance within. Regardless, once the Knight shows up and yeets itself off this cliff, the actual game of Hollow Knight finally begins.
Finally, let's go.
Now, there's a lot of details we could get into. Hallownest is full of NPCs and bosses, each with their own stories to tell. But to be honest, I don't think we need to go through all of them, since their stories
They're
are
mostly
relatively
side, yeah,
straightforward.
and
For
side
example,
quests.
let's look at the Brooding Moloch. So why is the Brooding Moloch brooding?
Good question.
Because all its friends are dead.
Oh,
And there you go. That's the lore for the Brooding Moloch.
I
Also, it's
see.
the only character in the game with a visible
visible
asshole.
asshole.
Now, do you really need me to explain that to you? Probably not. So instead, I'm just going to talk about the interactions relating to Hollow Knight's main story. The Knight is eventually noticed by Hornet, who lures it deep into Greenpath. There, Hornet attempts to kill the Knight, claiming that she knows what it would try to do. At this point, Hornet views the Knight as being too weak. After the fight, Hornet can be found in the City of Tears, next to the statue of the Hollow Knight. Hornet mentions that the Knight has gained a resilience, due to the time it spent in the void beyond Hallownest. This could be referring to the fact that some of those who leave Hallownest lose their memories, meaning the Knight would have no memories of its own tragic conception. Hornet tells the Knight that if it seeks to continue the stasis that keeps Hallownest standing, it must seek the Graven Ash, which is referring to the Kingdom's
Even like the
Edge.
Graven Ash, like that's such a Hollow Knight reference, or such a Dark Souls reference. I feel like there is an Ash of Grave in Dark Souls 3. I'm pretty sure.
At this moment, Hornet sees the Knight as a possible replacement for the Hollow Knight. Basically, the Knight could break the seals that keep the Hollow Knight locked away, defeat the Hollow Knight, and contain the infection itself.
And become the new Hollow Knight.
It's
Yeah.
at this point that I should mention that Hollow Knight actually has 5 different endings, because of course it would. I'm going to be explaining each of these endings in this video, as they each give us a
Okay.
different glimpse into the mechanics of Hollow Knight's world. Now, to get the easiest ending to Hollow Knight, Hornet's instructions to go to the Kingdom's Edge can be ignored completely.
Oh,
If the Knight stumbles upon the resting grounds, the 3 dreamers will appear and cast the Knight into the Dream Realm. There, Seer will come to the Knight's rescue and grant it the Dream Nail, a special blade that can tear the veil between the real world and the dream world. With the Dream Nail, the Knight can venture to the resting places of the 3 dreamers, curb stomp their asses, and unlock
Stomp
the
their
entrance
asses.
to the Black Egg. Inside the egg, the Knight finds the Hollow Knight chained up, silently watching over it. Once the chains are broken, the Hollow Knight screams with that familiar Radiance roar and pursues the Knight.
yep.
As the fight progresses, the Hollow Knight starts trying to kill itself, Quirrell style.
Yeah, I remember this
Then the
moment. I was so
Radiance starts using
confused.
the Hollow Knight's body to perform her own attacks. Once defeated, the Hollow Knight begins to spew infection all over the place. The Knight can then focus the infection into itself. This results in the first ending of the game,
The Hollow
called
Knight.
Hollow Knight. In this ending, the Knight usurps the Hollow Knight, prolonging the stasis over Hallownest. New chains and bindings appear out of fuck if I know,
Yeah.
and contain the Knight, and a new seal is placed over the entrance to the Black Egg. Now there is one giant question looming over this ending. Can the Knight actually contain the infection?
I don't think so. I
indefinitely,
mean, if the first
or will
one
the
doesn't-
Radiance still manage to break free one day? Before we answer this question, let's look at some of the other events that can transpire while playing the game. If the
Okay.
player chooses to go to Kingdom's Edge, Hornet will challenge the Knight one last time as a final test of strength. After her defeat, Hornet allows the Knight to access the cast-off shell, where the Pale King was originally hatched.
I think I went here. I'm not
By
sure.
interacting with this egg, the Knight's shell is marked with the King's brand, technically making the Knight the new ruler of Hallownest. With the King's brand, the Knight can now open the entrance to the Abyss and discover the place of its birth. When
Yeah, I
leaving
think I
the
went
Abyss,
here.
The Knight can
I'm pretty
encounter
sure.
Hornet again, where for the first time, Hornet suggests that there are actually 2 outcomes the Knight can enact. She tells the Knight that it can either prolong Hallownest stasis or face the heart of the Kingdom's infection.
Oh.
Within the Knight, Hornet sees a chance for change. Instead of just replacing the Hollow Knight, Hornet believes that it may be possible to get rid of the infection completely by using the void inside of the Knight.
Okay.
After visiting the Abyss and obtaining the Shade Cloak, the Knight is capable of reaching the White Lady, hidden away in the Queen's Gardens. The White Lady tells the Knight that she has been awaiting a vessel to accept a gift, that gift being one half of a charm called the King's Soul, which she claims will give the Knight more power. The White Lady goes on to explain that she can feel the weakening of the Hollow Knight within her roots. She tells the Knight that it is free of the blemishes that made the Hollow Knight a flawed vessel. From this dialogue, it is implied that the Knight truly is a pure vessel, capable of containing the Radiance successfully.
Like forever?
But it's not quite that simple, so we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper into this. Basically, we're gonna need to answer a simple question. What exactly does it mean to be a Hollow Knight?
Good question.
Despite the White Lady's words, we have a number of instances where the characters and item descriptions mention that the Knight has a will, and maybe even a mind. But from the Pale King's dialogue when describing the Hollow Knight, it is stated that a pure vessel has no mind or will. So is the White Lady wrong? Or maybe even lying? Her eyes have been clouded by time, and she can be tricked into thinking that Ogrim is in the room when the Knight is wearing the Defender's Crest charm.
Yeah.
She also thinks that Dryia is still alive, which...
Yeah, that's pretty...
So
Yikes.
maybe the White Lady is just senile. My problem with that theory is that the White Lady states that the vessels stand out to her clearly in a misted world, due to them being her spawn. She also questions whether or not the Knight sought her aid, which would imply that the Knight must have some kind of will. So for whatever reason, the White Lady thinks the Knight is still capable of containing the Radiance,
despite the...
even if it's still able to make decisions. After all, the Hollow Knight was considered pure, but they still taught it how to wield a fucking sword. I mean, if the Knight were truly and completely hollow in a literal sense, it probably shouldn't even be able to walk, or draw a map, or open a goddamn bank account.
I remember
In
this.
short, this whole concept of being hollow is so abstract and hard to define, I don't really feel comfortable giving a solid answer on whether or not the Knight is or isn't truly hollow, and I think the game leaves room open for other interpretations. Of course, the White Lady's gift is useless without the other half of the King's Soul. In order to reach it, however, the Knight must travel to the White Palace, locked
I don't
inside
think
the
I've been
body
here
of the
before.
King's Mold. In order to bypass the seal, the Knight must use a fully awakened Dream Nail. It can do this by bringing 1800 essence to the seer, allowing her to sharpen the weapon's blade.
I think I did this
If the
though.
Knight does this, the seer remarks that the Knight truly is the wielder that her tribe has been dreaming of. There's no explicit reason why the Moth tribe was dreaming about this supposed wielder so much, but it seems like they believe the wielder would wash away the crimes the Moth tribe committed by turning their backs on the Radiance. The seer seems to know that the Knight might kill the Radiance, and she seems accepting of it, ready for her and her tribe to disappear and be forgotten forever. With the awoken Dream Nail in hand, the Knight can travel to the Pale King's refuge and locate the other half of the King's Soul charm. When equipped, the King's Soul provides a never-ending supply of soul, making it almost useful if it weren't for the insanely high cost of the
Holy
charm,
shit.
and the painfully slow rate at which it increases, and the fact that the charm will get replaced in about 5 minutes after you get it. The King's Soul charm itself symbolizes the union between two higher beings. To me, this implies that the King's Soul is a representation of a vessel, which also was created by the union of two higher beings. With the King's Soul in their inventory, the Knight now gains access to an area in the abyss called the Birthplace.
I think I did
In
have
this
the King's
massive
Soul.
pile
No,
of
I don't
vessel
remember.
shells, the Knight can find a giant egg. Dream nailing the egg allows the Knight to access its own memory when it was cast down into the abyss. From viewing that memory, the King's Soul charm is replaced with the
I think I
Void
do
Heart
remember
charm.
this, or
The
I
recollection
don't.
of this event allows the Knight to come to terms with the void inside itself. Once the Knight has the Void Heart, the shades in the abyss no longer attack it, and that strange creature that gives the Knight the Shade Cloak calls it the Lord of Shades.
The Lord of
In
Shades.
other words, the Knight has now bound the once fragmented void under its own will, allowing it to control the void in a powerful new way. With the union of the void, the Pale King, and the White Lady, the Knight has gained a strength before unseen. It is with this charm that 2 additional endings become unlocked. Hornet will now be standing outside of the Black Egg, offering to help the Knight should the opportunity arrive. Midway through the fight with the Hollow Knight, Hornet rushes into battle, subduing the Hollow Knight and piercing its shell.
That's so sick.
The Knight is given the perfect opportunity to enter into the mind of its sibling, fighting the source of the infection head on, and finally putting an end to the Radiance's tyranny. Or it can just stand there and let Hornet get knocked unconscious. If the Knight finishes off the Hollow Knight as usual, the sealed sibling ending occurs.
Hornet is still there! Hornet is still there in the background!
The sealed sibling ending occurs. Basically, it's the same as the Hollow Knight ending.
But now Hornet is also sealed, okay.
And her face appears on the door of the Black Egg. It's not clear what exactly this means for Hallownest. This might imply that Hornet is now a dreamer, but she's inside the temple,
Yeah.
meaning that no one can actually get in there to kill her should the knight ever start leaking infection. At the same time, Hornet mentions that the bindings of the black egg would drain her, so she's probably just going to die anyway, right? Generally, people consider this to be one of the worst endings, but it's worth pointing out that Team Cherry doesn't support any one ending as being the true ending.
Okay.
Each ending is canonical in its own right, and honestly, this ending isn't the worst. At least the Knight and Hornet will get to spend some quality time together.
I
If the Knight
guess.
does dream of the Hollow Knight, it will be taken to an arena where it can finally fight the Radiance head-on. But the Knight isn't alone, as the other shades from the Abyss will appear in order to help corner the Radiance.
The dead siblings.
Eventually, the Radiance gets trapped in the tendrils of the Void. The Knight bitch slaps her a couple times, and then the Radiance is consumed into the darkness. The black egg then appears to turn to shadows, and the Void seeps down into the ground. Hornet awakens to find the Knight's broken shell lying on the floor.
Oh, wait,
We get
what?
one final shot of the shades in the Abyss going to rest, and the game is over.
I feel like
ending
this
is called the
must be
Dream No
the
More ending.
true
The
ending. I
Radiance
feel
is
like.
gone, and Hallownest is finally
Although I know the devs don't support any one canon ending, but I feel like this ending makes the most sense for a Silksong.
free from her infection. Now I think it's fair to ask a few questions about how the Dream No More ending comes about. When the Hollow Knight was initially chosen to become the pure vessel, the Abyss was sealed up and the rest of the vessels were left to rot away. But somehow, vessels ended up outside of the Abyss, and then one of those vessels was used to replace the Hollow Knight. Exactly how much of this operation was planned, if at all? The White Lady was waiting for a vessel. Did she have any communication with Hornet? Hornet was guarding the King's Brand, the only way for a vessel to enter the Abyss. How did she know it was necessary to guard the King's Brand from weaker vessels? Hell, if the vessels did escape the Abyss by themselves, wouldn't it be pointless to guard the King's Brand, since the vessels could just creep back into the Abyss the same way?
Oh, that's true.
I'm not going to provide any good answers
That's
to
true,
these
actually.
questions, because God forbid I answer anything in this entire video. But I do want to point out that no plans to actually produce the Dream No More ending are explicitly stated in-game. So we can only speculate as to whether or not the White Lady or Hornet, or maybe even the Pale King, knew that they could defeat the Radiance by creating a Lord of Shades like the Knight. Regardless, the next two endings were definitely not planned.
Okay.
In fact, the last two endings that were added in the Godmaster update almost feel out of place. The Godseekers basically hijack everything to the point where you don't even have to enter the Temple of the Black Egg to beat the game.
Oh, what?
That's like beating Mario Bros without ever seeing
Yeah.
Bowser. But on the other hand, the Godmaster endings basically reinforce that Hallownest does not exist in a vacuum, which can help the world of Hollow Knight feel more real. Because what else is reality but just a bunch of random chaotic stuff happening all the time? If the Knight finds the Godseeker in the junk pit, it will be able to enter her mind and refight all the bosses in the game.
Oh
This is part
my
of the
god.
Godseeker's ritual. They basically attune to the resonance of gods through ritual combat. This allows them to ascend their minds higher and eventually, through the use of godly focus,
Godly
achieve
focus?
communication with the god sleeping in Hallownest's heart, the Radiance. Now I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty convoluted little religious practice they have going on here. What's next? Are they going to start measuring the Knight's Theon levels? It's pretty complicated, but the point is, these Godseekers have some serious capabilities to fuck things up in Hallownest,
Yeah.
as we're about to see. As the Knight makes it further and further through the four Pantheons, the Godseekers get closer and closer to making contact with the Radiance, locked away inside the Hollow Knight.
Right.
At the end of the fourth Pantheon, the Radiance makes herself aware in this strange reunion cutscene between the vessels. But she isn't the only one to make an appearance. The Void itself appears to go on the attack, rising up to meet the Radiance's call. It's at this point that the final challenge, the Pantheon of Hallownest, becomes available. The Godseeker finally acknowledges the Knight as being more than just a simple cringer, and they begin to watch the Knight more intently. After defeating like a bazillion bosses in the final Pantheon, the Knight finally comes face to face with the Absolute Radiance.
Absolute Radiance.
A stronger, more enhanced version of the game's final boss. Finally, the stage is set.
The final
After
boss.
40 minutes of intense agony and tedious boss battles, the Knight has finally reached the ultimate enemy, responsible for the destruction of Hallownest. Truly, this will be a battle for the ages. But first, let's check in on our old pal Enterbug. As it turns out, he's still alive when the Knight arrives in Hallownest, and he's still fulfilling his duty after all this time. let's take one last
I respect
look at
it,
his
you know?
diary.
Honest work.
My lovely diary. Someone's gone and broke my favorite sign. Right there at the top of the crossroads. Keeps happening too. But you know, I just can't get mad about it. I should be thanking
man.
really. More chances to fix that beautiful, complex sign. And I've stocked up on spare parts, so I've no fear it'll ever stay broken.
Wait. This person doing this narration, I've heard his voice before. Isn't he the one that makes the video on Dark Souls lore? Hang on, is he credited maybe? Guest voices in order of appearance. I'm pretty sure I've heard this voice before. I knew it! I knew it! Yeah, Vati
The
Vidya.
only way to ever read the Menderbug's diary is to kill him in cold blood.
Oh.
I'm not sure why Team Cherry thought this was necessary, but the general consensus on Reddit is that they are bloodthirsty warmongers, so it checks out.
That's
But
sad.
at least Menderbug's last moments will be spent fixing one of his favorite signs in the Forgotten
That's actually kind of
Crossroads.
sad.
It's comforting to think that his final seconds of consciousness were spent in total bliss, before we sent him hurtling into the infinite chasm that is oblivion. Well, anyways, the alternate fight between the Knight and the Radiance plays out differently than in the vanilla ending. This time around, the Knight is not accompanied by any shades.
Oh, I see. So
Instead,
there are like
after defeating the
two.
Radiance, the Knight seems to transform into this monstrosity.
Whoa!
Now this creature goes by many names. The God of Gods.
Oh
the
my-
Lord Shade.
That
the
looks so
Devourer,
sick though.
The Void Entity.
The Devourer.
But I don't really like any of those, so I will just call him Bill. Bill
Bruh.
proceeds to completely annihilate the Radiance in spectacular fashion. We are then treated to the Embrace the Void ending. Bill comes back down from the sky, dropping into the rest of Godhome. The Godseeker starts to get pulled into Bill by Void tendrils. We then cut to the Godseeker in the junk pit. Void starts leaking out of her eyes, and it appears as though Bill is making an escape back into the real world, which is probably a bad thing? Finally, we see Hornet standing outside of the Black Egg as the infection begins to disappear from nearby vines. Hornet hears footsteps coming from inside the Black Egg as the Hollow Knight reveals itself to her, and the two prepare for combat.
Wait, but now the Hollow Knight doesn't have
From
any.
this cutscene, we can see that the
Wait, hang on.
Radiant
Why
look to
though?
her and
Like, if the Radiance is defeated, then this Hollow Knight shouldn't have any infection within him, right?
the two prepare for combat. So from this cutscene, we can see that the Radiance's death in Godhome actually did kill her for real, meaning that the infection over
Yeah, there's no
Hallownest
infection
is now
left.
gone. This means the seals inside of the Black Egg probably wore off, allowing the Hollow Knight to escape its prison.
But why
In other
then
words, the Embrace
fight
the Void
Hornet?
ending is a goddamn cliffhanger, and we have no idea how Team Cherry plans to follow this up. The Hollow
Yeah.
Knight is running loose in Hallownest, and the Knight has transformed into a raging void monster that might try to destroy the entire kingdom, or at least what's left of it. What's even more strange about this ending is that the announced sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, doesn't seem to be related to this ending at all.
Yeah, I know.
But
It's
that's a whole different shit show. Obviously, the biggest mystery surrounding this ending is the appearance of Bill. Did this creature exist in the void already? Or was it somehow willed into existence by the power of the Godseekers? Did the Knight turn into this thing, or did it just become a part of it? Examining a statue of this creature and other forms of the Knight grant the player a Hunter's Journal entry for an ancient artifact
called the Void Idol,
which might imply this creature might have been worshipped by the ancient civilization. But again, that's pure speculation. We don't know what this worship of Void exactly looked like. Maybe the Void they worship took the form of something more sinister.
I'm jealous of
There's
that
one
word
thing we know about
resting.
this monster, though.
Yeah,
It's
a
weak
luxury.
to flowers. Yes, these things. As
Wait,
it
what?
turns out, those
Hang on.
things
I
are
think
sinister. Exactly.
I think
look
I
like.
missed something.
That maybe the Void they worship took the form of something more sinister. There is one thing we know about this monster, though. It's weak to flowers. Yes,
Flowers.
these things. As it turns out, those delicate flowers that Zamir has stockpiled up her ass are actually useful for something.
Oh.
They contain a strange power that even deters the White Lady from touching one.
Oh.
The Godseeker, however, is dumb enough to accept a flower from the Knight. If the player does this, instead of Void being released out into the world, this flower pulls a no you, and the Godseeker and Void disappear into thin air.
How?
The flower itself is described as giving off a pale light, which appears to connect
How
you to
does
the
that
pale
even work?
beings. Like I said before, pale beings appear to be some form of top-tier gods.
Sure.
As of right now, we are only aware of two, the Pale King and the White Lady, but the fact that Zamir brought these pale flowers from a faraway land implies that there are definitely more of them out there. Another small hint of the existence of pale beings are the pale ore items that can be found all over Hallownest.
The ones that we used to enhance our nail.
Or possibly some other pale being. And what exactly are they? Are they poop?
Okay,
In general, the Godmaster endings appear to be doing a lot of setup for future Hollow Knight content. Like I said before, Hollow Knight Silksong doesn't seem to connect to these events on the surface, so we are in a bit of a bind when trying to discuss what these endings actually mean for the greater narrative Team Cherry is building. There's definitely a lot more to consider about what the pale beings are and what properties they possess. And we also have plenty of questions surrounding the Void and how bugs have interacted with it in the past. It almost feels like we are looking through a keyhole, trying to grasp onto the totality of Team Cherry's creation. How powerful are creatures like Bill and the worms? Where did things like the Void even come from to begin with?
Oh, that's probably one of the
How
biggest
much bigger is
questions.
the world beyond Hallownest? Is Bardoon into butt stuff?
Okay.
But of course, that's the appeal of a game like Hollow Knight. Having all of the answers to every question would just ruin the mystery of the world. Plus, if we didn't have questions like this to waste our time on, then what else would we be doing with our lives? Go
We could be
outside?
playing Valorant.
Ugh. And so this video comes to an end. Now I know the
there we
average
go.
attention span of a YouTube viewer is
My